Hello and welcome to the news on HOMEF TV. I am Kome Odomo. Here's the highlights. Debunking climate false solution. Voices from the Environmental and Social Justice School. HOMEF poetry session amplifies the voice of Mother Earth. Extraction to eruption. Environmental and health crisis in Bile community. Now the news in detail. In a 3-day environmental and social justice school created to challenge the narratives around false solution and build people-centered alternatives, it exposed that Africa continues to bear the harshest impacts of climate crisis, from flood, droughts, and food insecurity, as well as displacements. However, many solutions being proposed, such as carbon markets, geoengineering, and large-scale biomass, are not designed with justice in mind. They are rather a new form of climate colonialism, where Africa becomes a testing ground, communities lose control and land resources, and polluters continues business as usual. Our correspondent Stanley Egolo completes the report.
A major focus of the school, organized by Center for Environmental Justice Togo, was geoengineering, particularly solar radiation modification. During the presentation, facilitators raised key concerns that modifications to solar radiation do not address the root cause of climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. Rather, it risks disrupting rainfall patterns, especially in Africa, weakening monsoons and threatening food systems, creating the danger of termination shock, sudden extreme warming if stopped, and encourages delay in real emissions cuts. Across sessions, participants unpacked how climate interventions are reproducing colonial patterns, stating that climate change is driven by extractivism and the same system is now offering solutions. This led to the conclusion that Africa is a sacrifice zone instead of a protected community. Participants examined how carbon markets enable continued pollution elsewhere, turn forests into carbon sinks rather than living ecosystems, and cause communities to lose livelihoods in the name of conservation.
When we are talking about big biomass, it does not come without an impact, as I have already said. We are talking about weak governance and insecure land tenure. When we have weak governance, because when these proponents of big biomass come, they take large land. But at the end of it all, when you look at the policies, you find that these policies have loopholes. They do not protect the indigenous communities who have occupied the land where these big biomasses are being introduced.
A session by Dr. Nemo Basi grounded the entire school in one core idea, which spoke to human togetherness with nature. He noted that environmental justice is not just about conservation, it is about liberation from exploitation, restoration and reparation, wellness for people and the planet.
Number one solution to climate change, geoengineering, and all such non-solutions is the power of no. Everybody say no.
No.
If you speak French, say none. No. Yeah, you speak French? None.
No.
That is a solution. When you say no to anything, it's a solution. And when all of us say no to a particular thing, that thing will not happen. That is a solution. If you don't say no, there will be no alternative. But when you say no, you know what is. You don't need to say, okay, don't do this, do this. But if you say don't do this, it is a solution already. And nobody should ever let you feel shy to say no or make you feel inadequate because you could not give an alternative. I don't need to give you any bloody alternative. All I need to know that this thing, I don't want it, I reject it, I reject colonialism, I reject geoengineering, I reject all those non-solutions like the nationally determined contributions, which is all fabrications and false.
The difference between transition and just that there's a difference between transition and just transition. A transition can change the economy. So they will have investment, they'll have jobs, they'll have roads. So a transition can change the economy, but a just transition must protect life. It must protect dignity of the people, and people must be in control and be in power as well.
At the close of the school, one message stood out. Not all climate solutions are just. False solutions can delay real action, deepen inequality, and reinforce colonial systems. The Environmental and Social Justice School was more than a gathering. It was a reminder that the fight for climate justice is a fight for liberation. And Africa is not just a victim of the climate crisis. It is a powerful voice shaping the future. Stanley Egolo for HOMEF TV.
A one-day poetry session with Dr. Nimi Wariboko raises awareness of the environmental challenges faced in the Niger Delta region. The event featured poetic performance, readings, and intense questions and answers session. Dr. Wariboko's poetry is rooted in culture, history, and the environment in which he grows and learns. He opened by linking ecology and poetry through the lens of sustainability, where he describes sustainability as the sweet spot between us and rejuvenation. Our correspondent Mabel Obaseki files in the report.
Dr. Nimo Basi, Executive Director of the Earth of Motherhood Foundation, described Wariboko's work as uniquely positioned in Nigerian literature as the only poetry collection addressing the Civil War from the perspective of ordinary people rather than the military viewpoint. He emphasized Wariboko's cultural rootedness and critical patriotism. The session's purpose is to help people understand their environment as a prerequisite to addressing its problems, which captures the imagination of a wide variety of people, fertilized thinking, and reaches more hands. In his presentation, Dr. Nimi Wariboko emphasized that his poetry aimed to promote ecological literacy and challenge both the Nigerian public and creatives to play an active role in restoring the environmentally degraded Niger Delta.
If we don't understand our environment, we don't love our environment, we cannot tackle the problems we are confronted with. And when you are ready to tackle the environmental problems in this nation or anywhere in the world, you have to use all the creative abilities that you have. If you are a poet, use your poetry. If you're a fiction writer, use your stories. If you're a storyteller, of course, tell your story. If you're a singer, sing about your situation. This is where we capture the imagination of a wide variety of people. If we use only one tool, you're going to miss a lot of people. But when we use diverse tools, then we get to fertilize the thinking of people and get to reach more hearts.
A prophet that does not confront the powers that be and require them, compel them, if necessary, whatever means, to do the right thing, is not a prophet. So you can't just stay somewhere and tell people tomorrow you are going to be rich if you give this offering, and that makes you a prophet. No, you are able to stand up for the powers that be for the sake of the least of this world, for the sake of helping the poor. So environmental activists that are poets or poets that are environmental activists are trying to let the powers that be understand what is going on in the environment and make them, as much as they can, to pay attention to bring the changes. So poets are, in that sense, as prophetic as any preacher that comes around to tell you that he or she is a prophet. Because if they say the poets are not prophet, then they don't understand what prophecy means. And I've just laid it out for you.
Participants shared key experiences from the interaction.
God created the earth so he would dwell on it actually. When we see Isaiah, Peter will tell us that the earth is of the Lord and the fullness thereof. So even God wants to dwell on the earth. So he created us. The best we can do is actually to take care of the earth. So the Bible will say, dress and keep. Dress and keep. So I learned a whole lot of that. That it's my purpose, it's my duty to dress and keep the earth.
Professor Nimi Wariboko has done a great job synergizing our environment and poetry. I've learned that poetry is powerful. I've learned that poetry is life. I've learned that from today's experience that we should take care of our environment. He made mention that little things are big things. And as human beings, without the earth, we will be nothing. And my take is that we should always make the earth green and make it colorful and habitable for us to live in.
We have the responsibility to keep the earth, to make it green, and to ensure that every little thing we do as individuals, as living beings on earth, matters a lot. And whatsoever we do, we must remember that it has significant impact on our environment as a people and as living beings.
The session presented poetry as a voice for the voiceless earth, while urging humans to speak for the earth. Because if we allow the earth to speak for ourselves, we may not be able to retell the story. Time itself is gasping for air. We need to free the time that remains from slow diminution or strangulation, so it can grow without limit and flourish. Wariboko closed with a warning. The earth does not speak to us in a normal way. We are the voice of the voiceless, but when we keep silent and the earth decide to speak, we will be consumed. Mebe Obaseki for HOMEF TV.
A gas eruption is turning a riverine community into an escalating environmental and public health emergency. Faced with a growing environmental disaster caused by a subterranean gas eruption from decaying oil infrastructure originally built by Shell in the 1960s, researched by Social Action, an organization based in Rivers State in Nigeria, detailed the dire health, economic, social, and environmental conditions faced by community members. Our correspondent Esili Ojanelo has the report.
Bile, a riverine community in Degema local government area of Rivers State, has been a decades-long focal point of oil and gas pollution, now facing a dangerous escalating environmental and public health emergency driven by a widespread subterranean gas eruption. This crisis reflects the deepening environmental breakdown in the Niger Delta oil fields, particularly following the sale of aging and purely maintained assets by international oil companies. Research conducted by Social Action reported that the current crisis began in November 2025, when residents observed intense bubbling in the surrounding rivers, accompanied by the release of pungent hydrocarbon-like gases throughout the community. Multiple sites began emitting foul-smelling gases and the air filled with toxic fumes. The report showed that hydrocarbons continued to escape through rivers, wells, boreholes, and surrounding land, contaminating water sources and creating volatile conditions in a densely populated area. With no safe water sources available, exposure occurs through both inhalation and contact, leading to the evacuation of the local primary school, underscoring the impact on children. Elvis Dabere, head teacher of State School 1 in Bile, an institution established in 1939, describes a deeply troubling development that has directly disrupted education and placed children at risk. According to him, after the crisis started late in 2025, the situation quickly escalated, prompting the school and community to alert authorities, noting that the authorities carried out checks and confirmed that it was gas. Following assessments, officials reportedly concluded that the environment was unsafe, particularly for children. As a result, the school was forced to suspend operations at its original site. Students and staff were relocated to an alternative facility, though the conditions remained far from ideal. The field visits engaged with community leaders, civil society actors, and officials of the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, NOSRA, amid growing concern about the scale and persistence of the crisis. However, the government response has been fragmented and inadequate. Petroleum regulation and oil field oversight fall under federal jurisdiction, exercised through agencies such as the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission and National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency. NOSRA conducted preliminary investigations in December 2025, but key findings, particularly on water and soil contamination, remain undisclosed. While NOSRA claims that air quality is within permissible limits, its data made available to community members show otherwise, raising concerns about risk assessment and public safety. Esele Ojanilu, HOMEF TV.
The 2026 Earth Day on the theme, Our Power, Our Planet, points to the need to accelerate the transition to clean energy, drastically reduce carbon emission, and protect biodiversity in holistic ways that require both individual and collective action. Health of Moderate Foundation, HOMEF, notes that the environmental challenges we face, from shifting weather patterns to the loss of biodiversity, require more than incremental changes, as protecting the earth is not a choice, but a necessity for health, economy, and security of every nation.
The Executive Director of the Health of Mother Earth Foundation, HOMEF, Dr. Nemo Bassi, calls for the urgent action and investment in remediation and restoration of the global environment. The theme, Our Power, Our Planet, reminds us that humans have the power to act in ways that preserve the environment, secure lives, and build a sustainable future. It is time to build positive alternatives and transform our relationship with nature from one of colonial extraction to one of stewardship. Dr. Bassi further said that our planet's ecosystems are the foundation of all lives. From the air we breathe to the water we drink, the gifts of nature are irreplaceable. Protecting the earth means safeguarding our own health, stabilizing global food supplies, and ensuring that future generations inherit a planet that thrives, not just survive. To do otherwise is akin to burning our father's house only to inherit the ashes. Health of Mother Earth Foundation urges everyone to mark this day by planting gardens, ending the use of single-use plastics, and supporting customary conservation and zero-waste models. It is a day that once exposes the intolerable environmental harms such as oil pollution, gas flaring, deforestation, and destructive extractive activities. HOMEF particularly frowns at the unending oil fires on our waters, two of which are the Ororo 1 well fire off the coast of Awoye in Ondo State, stir that has been burning for 6 years, and the wellhead fire on the river of Ofiominama community in Okrika local government area of Rivers State that has been raging for 2 years. It is time for the Nigerian government to end these persistent nightmares, decommission the time bombs, and rehabilitate both the environment and the people. Stanley Egolo for HOMEF TV.
We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll bring you news from Indonesia. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The 5th Niger Delta Alternative Convergence will be focusing on the theme, decommissioning and accountability. Do well to register with the links below. The Global Tapestry of Alternatives is a network that builds bridges between existing and new networks of alternatives around the globe, weaving together initiatives that build solidarity. It seeks to facilitate and propel transformative change that will eventually converge into a critical mass of alternative ways that can support the conditions for the radical systemic changes we need. The network held its 2nd annual assembly in April in Bandung, Indonesia. Our correspondent Onome Etisuru completes the report.
The assembly was a week-long experience that witnessed the process of weaving the pluriverse called the Global Tapestry of Alternatives an initiative seeking to create solidarity networks and strategic alliances among radical alternatives on local, regional, and global levels. These alternatives challenge the current dominant structures and relations of oppression and unsustainability, such as heteropatriarchy, capitalism, anthropocentrism, racism, and casteism, among others, and sustain long-standing ways of meeting human needs in harmony with the rest of nature. The GTA emerged from the Indian process called Viklap Sangam, Alternatives Conference, and from discussions with similar processes, such as Crianza Mutua in Mexico. GTA is now endorsed by international organizations and networks and many individual reference, activists, public intellectuals, academics, etc. The Global Tapestry of Alternatives facilitation team comprises members from all continents.
The Global Tapestry for Alternatives is a network of like-minded groups who are dissatisfied with the state of things in the world today. And so for over the past few days, we've been talking about these difficulties, these problems, the challenges of the world, the crisis in the world, but most importantly, coming out with solutions, pathways on where we should go to build a world in which everyone lives in harmony and in peace.
And we came here to talk about so many things, how we can consolidate the assembly. There is also the organ of the facilitation team, and also weavers, people who bring together different ideas about alternatives. Alternatives are alternatives to the mainstream. Alternative means that something is wrong, and we are trying to make something that is less dangerous.
I think this is a fantastic gathering because it allows us to tap into the strength of people from different regions of the world and understanding that there is another way of existing in this world, especially in light when we think about the craziness that is going on in the world with all of the wars and everything else. I think that being in a space like this is important. Understanding what is happening in Latin America, here in Southwest Asia is very important. And I think also that the work that GTA is doing is fantastic.
It's important that organizations like GTA or gatherings like GTA happen, because all of us are, in the dominant economy, we are very small. But if we all come together and we start working from a position of strength, then there is a lot we can try to pose to the dominant economy.
The assembly is a process where we are trying to see how can we build organizations and how can we build networks and weave tapestries which does not represent what we are fighting against. So how do we come together? How do we decide? How do we weave horizontally? How do we make sure that there is no one leader? How do we make sure that no one region or religion or one person or one ideology dominates the process?
An initiative that is trying to bring together movements of alternatives from across the world, from Asia, from Africa, from Southeast Asia, from Latin America, and it gathers together many peoples, communities who are imagining and living and practicing a different world, a hopeful world that we all know is possible. So this has been a very important gathering of meeting together and coming together in these times of war and crisis, and really nurturing our hope in our lived experiences and realities.
The GTA is an initiative that operates through varied lightweight structures that are horizontal, democratic, inclusive, and non-centralized, using diverse ways of communicating. It hopes to stimulate global solidarity with initiatives that are threatened or are otherwise in need of support. Holding the assembly in Bandung invoked memories of the significant Bandung Conference that took place here in 1955. That conference profoundly strengthened the then non-aligned movement and propelled a wave of anti-colonial and liberation struggles. The spirit of Bandung lives. Onome Etisiro for HOMEF TV.
Kebekasia Women Development and Resource Center, in collaboration with other African women, commemorated the launch of the African Women Climate Justice Day, originally initiated by the African Women Climate Assembly. The day is now established as an independent annual platform to amplify women's voices on climate justice and highlight the disproportionate impact of climate change on women. The event brought together more than 40 participants, including women farmers from community, civil society actors, stakeholders, and the media. Esele Ojanelo completes the report.
The launch of African Women's Climate Justice Day marks a critical step toward elevating women's voices in climate discourse. While women in the Niger Delta continue to show resilience, sustained advocacy, inclusive policies, and tangible support remain essential to achieving climate justice and a sustainable future. Community presentations revealed the severe impacts of climate change across the Niger Delta, from Abwa to Okozi in Onelga in Rivers State, where all participants expressed that flooding has destroyed farms, displaced communities, and exposed residents to hunger and disease, with a lack of government support having worsened poverty and health conditions, making it unsafe, particularly for women. In our opening remarks, the Executive Director, Dr. M.M. Okon, emphasized that the initiative reflects the demands of African women on the front lines of climate impacts for concrete development alternatives and inclusive climate action.
We are not the cause of the climate change. People who come from advanced countries to come and do business cause this problem, and then they are making big profit from the business, and we are suffering the consequences. So that is why part of the demand is that we don't just want aid to Africa. So they send us aid as if they are doing us a favor, but they need to pay for all the pains that they have caused us over all these decades. Even when we have to look back to slavery and then to colonialism.
We have serious trouble in our hands, not just food insecurity. We can't. I saw a video recently of a university student being flogged by bandits, you know, and I'm wondering, you know, yes, it's all over the internet, being flogged. So you can't even move from point A to point B without the risk of thinking about your security.
Participants collectively called for government accountability, corporate responsibility, and access to climate finance and institutional support. They emphasized the need for ecosystem restoration, reparations for affected communities, and stronger collaboration among NGOs, government agencies, and international bodies. Despite these challenges, women are demonstrating resilience through local initiatives such as cooperative savings schemes, small-scale businesses, and climate-smart agriculture. An exhibition of farm produce, including cassava, pepper, okra, vegetables, and cucumbers, highlighted their efforts. A major highlight of the event was the official launch of Kebekasi's 5 Million Mangrove campaign, aimed at restoring degraded ecosystems, mitigating flooding, and enhancing women's economic empowerment. Calls were also made for partnerships with institutions to support women's skills development. Key outcomes included increased awareness of gendered climate impacts, strengthened community knowledge on adaptation strategies, renewed advocacy for accountability, and enhanced collaboration among stakeholders. Esele Ojanelo for HOMEF TV.
5,500 candidates and elected officers have now signed the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge. The No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge is a promise not to take campaign contribution from fossil fuel industries that touches our planet, pollutes our air, water, and raise our energy bills, and also corrupts our democracy. The No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge is a way for candidates to signal that they will fight for working families, not big oil executives. Oil Change Action fights to get fossil fuel money out of politics once and for all. Our correspondent Onome Etisuru completes the report.
Every election cycle, the fossil fuel industry spends hundreds of millions to elect candidates who protect their profits. In return, these politicians shower the industry with special tax breaks and destroy life-saving environmental protections for communities. Big oil and gas rake in enormous profits from Trump's devastating illegal war in Iran. And too many of our leaders do nothing when fossil fuel companies raise the price of gas and electricity for working families. Oil Change International, in its current pledge, has signers from 49 states and all levels of government and includes over 60 sitting members of Congress, hundreds of state legislators, and former President Joe Biden. Oil Change campaign manager Colin Dress, in a statement, notes that many of this year's primary elections are just around the corner. If we work together, we can elect candidates who will protect our communities from climate disasters, make life more affordable, and fight to preserve and strengthen our democracy. With your help, we can expand the group of elected officials who aren't indebted to the fossil fuel industry and who are willing to challenge its efforts to sacrifice people and the planet to maximize profits. We all deserve to be represented by leaders who will fight for us, not big oil. Onme Etisiro for HOMEF TV.
Thank you for staying with us, and remember to follow us on all our social media handles on Echo HOMEF and subscribe to our YouTube channel. While at it, remember to register for the upcoming Niger Delta Alternative Convergence to take a slot on the virtual participation. I'm Kome Ojomo.